The red sun of Kepler 442b burned hot above the mining pits. Hannah wiped sweat from her face as she carried another heavy bucket of ore to the transport station. Her back hurt from bending over all day, but she did not complain. None of the humans complained anymore. They had learned that complaining only made things worse. The Vorthak guards watched them work with cold yellow eyes. These tall, scaly creatures had ruled this planet for 10 years now. They treated humans like animals that could carry heavy things and work in dangerous places. To them, humans were weak and stupid. They were wrong about that, but Hannah kept that thought to herself. She worked beside her younger brother Tay. He was only 16 but already had scars on his hands from the sharp rocks. Their friend June worked nearby, his strong arms lifting, ore that would take 2 normal people to carry. Mira stood at the sorting station, her quick fingers separating the valuable metals from the worthless stone. These were not the only humans on the planet. Thousands of them worked in the mines, lived in the gray metal buildings the Vorthaks had built, and tried to survive each day. Most had been born here. Their parents and grandparents had been slaves too. They did not remember Earth, or know what freedom felt like. But Hannah remembered stories her grandmother told her before she died. Stories about blue skies and green grass, about humans who built great cities and traveled between stars. She shared these stories with others when the guards were not watching. She taught children to read using old books hidden in the walls. She made sure the sick got extra food even when there was not enough to go around. The Vorthaks did not like this. They wanted humans to be broken and hopeless. They wanted them to forget they were anything more than work animals. But Hannah would not let them forget. She sang old Earth songs while she worked. She helped people remember their names and the names of their families. She kept the small flame of human spirit burning in their dark world. Commander Thex was the worst of the Vorthak guards. He was bigger than the others and meaner. His scales were darker and his claws were longer. He enjoyed watching humans suffer. Sometimes he would hit someone just because he was bored. Other times he would take away food or water for no reason at all. Today, Commander Thex was angry about something else. One of the ore shipments was missing. Someone had stolen rare metals, worth a lot of money. The Vorthaks had searched everywhere but could not find the thief or the stolen ore. Hannah knew who had taken it. 3 days ago, some of the older workers had talked about taking medicine for the sick children. The Vorthaks would not give medicine to humans. They said it was a waste of resources, so the workers decided to take something valuable they could, trade for medicine in the underground market. But Hannah would never tell the guards this. She would die first. Commander Thex stomped into the work area where Hannah and her friends were loading ore cars. His heavy feet made the metal floor shake. Behind him came 4 smaller guards carrying shock weapons. These weapons could cause terrible pain without killing. The Vorthaks liked them because they could hurt humans many times before they died. "Stop working," Commander Thex said in his rough voice. All the humans put down their tools and stood still. They had learned to obey quickly. Moving too slow meant getting hit. "Someone stole from us," the commander continued. "Someone thinks they are smart enough to trick the Vorthak Empire. They are wrong. We always catch thieves. We always punish them." His yellow eyes looked at each human worker. Hannah felt his gaze stop on her. She kept her face calm and looked straight ahead. She would not show fear. Fear only made them happy. "But we do not know who the thief is yet," Commander Thex said with a cruel smile. "So we will pick someone to punish instead. This will help the real thief remember that their actions hurt others." Hannah's heart began to beat faster. She knew what was coming. The Vorthaks often punished innocent people to scare the others. It was one of their favorite ways to control the humans. The commander walked slowly among the workers. His claws clicked on the metal floor. Some people began to shake with fear. Others closed their eyes and prayed to gods that might not be listening anymore. He stopped in front of Hannah. "You," he said, pointing one long claw at her chest. "You will come with us." "No!" June stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "She did not steal anything. Pick someone else." Commander Thex laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Did this pet just tell me what to do?" He nodded to his guards. 2 of them grabbed June and hit him with their shock weapons. June screamed and fell to the ground, his body shaking from the electricity. Stop! Tay tried to run to help his friend, but Mira caught his arm and held him back. She shook her head. More violence would only make things worse. Hana looked down at June, who was trying to breathe through the pain. Then she looked at her brother, Tay, whose eyes were full of tears. Finally, she looked at Mira, who nodded slightly. They all understood. Someone had to be sacrificed to protect the others. Hana was strong enough to take whatever the Vortex would do to her. I will come, Hana said quietly. But leave the others alone. Commander Thex grabbed her arm with his clawed hand. His grip was tight enough to bruise, but not tight enough to break bones. He wanted her healthy for whatever he planned to do. All of you will watch, he announced to the other workers. You will see what happens when humans forget their place. You will learn why we are your masters and you are nothing. They dragged Hana away from the mining area. As she walked, she heard Mira start to sing one of the old Earth songs she had taught the others. Other voices joined in. Soon dozens of humans were singing together. The Vorthak guards hit some of them to make them stop, but the song continued. Hana smiled as she was pulled toward the punishment building. The aliens thought they were teaching humans to be afraid. Instead, they were teaching them to stand together. They were showing them that some things were worth fighting for, even when fighting seemed impossible. She did not know what the next few hours would bring. She did not know if she would survive what Commander Thex planned to do to her. But she knew that her friends would remember her courage. They would tell her story to their children, and someday, somehow, humans would be free. The punishment room was white and cold. Everything was made of smooth metal that reflected the harsh lights above. There were no windows, no decorations, nothing soft or comfortable. It was designed to make people feel small and alone. They strapped Hana to a metal chair in the center of the room. The straps were tight around her wrists and ankles, but she could still move her head. Commander Thex wanted her to see everything he was going to do. Do you know why you are here? The commander asked as he walked around the chair. Because you enjoy hurting people, Hana replied calmly. He laughed and showed his sharp teeth. Wrong. You are here to learn. All humans need to learn their place in the universe. Some learn by watching others suffer. Some must suffer themselves. Other Vorthak guards entered the room. They carried strange machines and screens. Hana had seen these devices before when other humans were brought here. Most who entered this room never came back the same. The lucky ones died quickly. We have studied your species for many years, Commander Thex explained as his guards set up their equipment. We know exactly how your minds work. We know what scares you most. We know how much pain you can feel before you break. One of the machines began to hum. Lights appeared on its surface, blinking in patterns that hurt to look at. Another device pointed at Hana's head, measuring her brain activity. The Vorthax wanted to know exactly how much she was suffering at every moment. Let us begin with your mind, the commander said. He pressed a button on one of the machines. Suddenly, Hana could see images in the air in front of her. They were not real, but they looked real. She saw her brother Tay being tortured by Vorthak guards. She heard him screaming her name, begging for help. She saw June and Mira and all her other friends being killed one by one. This is what happens when humans disobey, Commander Thex whispered in her ear. Everyone you love will pay for your pride. Hana knew the images were fake, but they still made her heart race. The machines could tell how scared she felt, and the readings made the Vorthax happy. But she did not cry or beg them to stop. Instead, she closed her eyes and began to speak. I remember green hills and running water, she said in a clear voice. I remember the smell of flowers and the sound of birds singing. The commander frowned. This was not the reaction he expected. He made the images worse. Now she could see Earth being destroyed, burned by Vorthak weapons. She could see human cities falling and children crying. But Hana kept talking about beautiful things. I remember stories of brave people who fought for what was right. I remember songs that made people feel strong when they were weak. Commander, Thex pressed more buttons. Now real pain began. The chair sent electricity through her body, making her muscles spasm and her nerves scream. But between the waves of agony, she continued speaking. I remember my grandmother's hands when she taught me to read. I remember the first time I saw a baby born in the mines, how we all cried because there was still hope in the world. The guards turned up the power. The pain was so bad that Hana could not help but gasp and shake. But when she could speak again, her voice was stronger, not weaker. In the human quarters, people gathered around screens that the Vorthax had set up to broadcast the torture session. They were supposed to watch and learn to be afraid. Instead, they listened to Hana's words. Kyung, an older woman who worked in the kitchen, began to repeat the same phrases. Yoon, a young man who fixed broken equipment, joined in. Soon dozens of humans were speaking together, saying the words Hana was teaching them. The guards in the quarters tried to make them stop, but there were too many people speaking at once. The words spread through the compound like fire. Back in the torture room, Commander Thex was getting angry. Nothing he did could break Hana's spirit. The pain made her body suffer, but her mind stayed strong. Worse, the other humans were not learning to be afraid. They were learning to be brave. He decided to use the worst device they had. It was called a neural disruptor. It could cause pain directly in the brain, bypassing the body completely. The agony was so pure and terrible that most people lost their minds within minutes. Last chance, he told Hana. Beg me to stop, and I will make your death quick. Hana looked at him with eyes that held no fear. I remember the stars, she said. I remember that humans came from the stars, and someday we will go back to them. The commander activated the neural disruptor. The pain was beyond description. It felt like her thoughts were being torn apart and set on fire. Every memory became a source of agony. Every emotion turned into suffering. The machine was designed to destroy everything that made a person human. But something strange happened. As the pain grew worse, Hana began to see things that were not there. She saw other humans who had died in rooms like this one. They were standing around her chair, watching with sad but proud faces. She recognized some of them from stories people told about lost friends and family. You are not alone, said a voice that seemed to come from inside her own mind. We are all here, with you. The neural disruptor was supposed to isolate her consciousness, to make her feel completely alone in her suffering. Instead, it was connecting her to something larger. She could feel the presence of every human who had ever lived and died under Vorthax rule. Her voice grew stronger even as her body grew weaker. She was no longer just speaking her own words. She was speaking for all of them. We remember who we were, she said, and her voice echoed strangely in the metal room. We remember who we are. We remember who we will become. Commander Thex stared at the readings on his machines. According to the instruments, Hana should have been unconscious or insane by now. Instead, her brain activity was increasing. She was becoming more aware, not less. He turned all the devices to their highest settings. Every torture method the Vorthax had developed was focused on one small human girl. Her heart was beating so fast it should have burst. Her brain was receiving more pain signals than any living thing should be able to process. For a moment, there was silence. Then Hana spoke one last time. We forgive you, she said, but we will not forget. Her heart stopped. The brain monitors went flat. The machines registered no life signs at all. Commander Thex turned off the devices and stepped back. Finally, the stubborn human was dead. He had broken her body even if he could not break her spirit. The other humans would see her corpse and learn to be afraid. He was wrong about that too. Commander Thex was filling out paperwork when the alarms started screaming. He looked up from his desk where he was writing his report about the successful punishment session. The human female had died after 6 hours of correction. Her body was still strapped to the chair in the torture room, waiting to be disposed of. The other humans in the compound had finally stopped their annoying chanting and singing. Everything was back to normal, except for the alarms. A young Vorthak guard ran into his office, his scales pale with fear. "Commander, you need to come see this. Something is wrong with the machines in the punishment room." Thex followed the guard through the corridors. The alarms were coming from the medical monitoring station. Every screen was flashing red warning lights. The computers were showing impossible readings. "What is the problem?" Thex demanded as they reached the control room. "The sensors are picking up life signs from the punishment room," the technician explained, his clawed hands shaking as he pointed at the displays. "But that's impossible. We confirmed the human was dead 37 minutes ago." Commander Thex felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Vorthak technology was perfect. Their sensors could detect the faintest heartbeat, the smallest electrical activity, in a brain. If they said something was alive, it was alive. But the human girl was dead. He had watched her die himself. They ran to the punishment room and stopped outside the heavy metal door. Through the small window they could see the chair where they had left Hana's body. But something was different. The room seemed brighter somehow, even though the lights had not changed. "Open it," Thex ordered. The guard's hand hesitated over the door controls. "Sir, maybe we should call for backup first. The readings are strange. Open the door now." The metal door slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Thex stepped inside, followed by his nervous guards. Hana's body was no longer hanging limp in the metal chair. She was sitting up straight, her head turned toward the door as if she had been waiting for them. Her eyes were open and looking directly at the commander. But her eyes were different. They glowed with a soft white light that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. When she blinked, the light did not fade. "Hello, Commander Thex," she said in a voice that sounded like her own, but somehow more. It seemed to echo, even though they were in a small room with no place for echoes to come from. One of the guards raised his shock weapon and fired it at her. The electrical blast passed right through her body without causing any effect. She did not even flinch. "That will not work anymore," Hana said calmly. She stood up from the chair, and the metal straps that had held her fell away like water. "Physical. Weapons cannot hurt someone who has moved beyond the physical world." Commander Thex stepped backward, his mind trying to understand what he was seeing. "You were dead. I watched you die. The machines confirmed it." "Yes, I died," Hana agreed. "Death is not the end you think it is. For humans, death is just another doorway. It leads to a place you cannot follow us." She began to walk toward them. Her feet made no sound on the metal floor. As she moved, the air around her seemed to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. "In the place beyond death, we met. Others," she continued. "Thousands and thousands of humans who died under your rule. They have been waiting there, learning, growing stronger. They sent me back to tell you something important." The guards tried to back out of the room, but the door had closed behind them. Their clawed hands scratched uselessly at the smooth metal surface. The controls did not respond to their touch. "What message?" Commander Thex asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Hana smiled, and her glowing eyes seemed to see right through him to something beyond. "The message is simple. You have been testing the wrong species." The lights in the room began to flicker. The torture machines started sparking and smoking. Computer screens showed streams of data that moved too fast for anyone to read. But Hana seemed to understand every symbol that flashed by. "For generations you have seen humans as weak prey animals," she said. "You thought we were perfect slaves because we seemed helpless. You were wrong. We were not helpless. We were learning." The metal walls of the room began to vibrate with a low humming sound. Cracks appeared in the smooth surfaces, spreading like spiderwebs across the ceiling. Every human you tortured, every human you killed, every human you broke, they all went to the same place when they died. They all became part of something larger. They became part of us. Commander Thex tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. "What are you?" "We are what humans become when we stop pretending to be weak," Hana replied. "We are what happens when you push a species past the breaking point and they choose to break forward instead of backward." She walked past the guards as if they were not there. When she reached the wall, she did not stop. Her body passed through the solid metal like it was made of smoke. On the other side, she turned back to look at them through the wall. "Your machines work by reading biological signs. her voice said, though her lips did not move. Heartbeat, brain activity, cellular function, but what you killed was just the biological part of me. The real me never needed a body to begin with. Ducker finally opened, and the guards scrambled out of the room. Commander Thex followed them, his legs shaking with fear he had never felt before. Behind them, the punishment room was falling apart. Metal beams twisted and broke. The torture devices crumbled into dust. They ran toward the central control room, hoping to send a message to the Vorthak fleet, but when they got there, they found Hana waiting for them. She was standing in front of the main communication console, her glowing form reflected in dozens of dark screens. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" she asked. "We have so much to talk about." Commander Thex realized that running would not help him. This creature that had once been human could appear anywhere she wanted. Walls and locked doors meant nothing to her now. "What do you want?" he asked. Hana tilted her head as if considering the question. "We want to give you the same choice you gave us. You can learn your place in the universe the easy way, or you can learn it the hard way." Around the compound, other Vorthak guards were reporting strange incidents. Humans were walking through walls. Work crews were disappearing from locked rooms. The sensors were picking up impossible energy readings from every part of the facility. "The awakening has begun," Hana said as alarms continued to wail throughout the base. "Every human in this compound is remembering what they really are. Soon, every human in the galaxy will remember." She turned to face the communication equipment. Without touching any controls, the screens began to light up. Connection channels opened to Vorthak ships and bases across dozens of star systems, and "We have a message to deliver." In the human quarters, Tay felt something change inside his chest. It started as a warm feeling, like drinking hot soup on a cold day. But it grew stronger and stronger, until it filled his whole body with light. He was sitting on his narrow bed, holding the small metal pendant that had belonged to his sister. The Vorthaks had returned Hana's few belongings after announcing her death. They said it would remind the humans what happened to troublemakers. But now the pendant was glowing with the same soft light he had seen in Hana's eyes. Across the room, Mira suddenly sat up from where she had been crying into her pillow. Her face was wet with tears, but her expression was changing. The sadness was being replaced by something else. Understanding. "Do you feel it too?" she whispered to Tay. He nodded. The warm light inside him was showing him things he had never seen before. Memories that were not his own. Knowledge that came from somewhere beyond his own mind. June limped into their sleeping area, his body still sore from the shock weapons. But as he walked, his injuries were healing. The bruises faded from his skin. The cuts closed themselves. He moved straighter and stronger with each step. "Something is happening to all of us," he said in wonder. I can see everything." The warm light was spreading through the entire human compound. In every room, in every work area, humans were stopping what they were doing and looking around with new eyes. They were remembering things their grandparents had forgotten. They were understanding truths that had been hidden from them their whole lives. Kyung, the older woman who worked in the kitchen, found that she could understand the Vorthak computer systems perfectly. Not just understand them, control them. She reached out with her mind and felt the electronic networks that ran the entire facility. Every camera, every lock, every environmental system was like an extension of her own body. "The food dispensers," she said to the other kitchen workers, "I can make them produce real Earth food. I know how now." Yoon discovered something even more amazing. He was standing in the machine shop, holding a broken piece of mining equipment. As he focused on it, the metal began to change. The cracks sealed themselves. The bent parts straightened. But more than that, he could feel the atomic structure of the material, and he could reshape it with his thoughts. "Look at this," he called to his friends. In his hands, the broken machine part was transforming into something beautiful. A small sculpture of a bird with its wings spread wide. Throughout the compound, similar discoveries were happening. Humans were finding abilities they never knew they had. Some could move objects without touching them. Others could speak directly into each other's minds. A few could make themselves invisible or walk through solid walls. But the most important discovery was the connection they all shared. Every awakened human could feel the presence of the others. They were no longer individuals struggling alone. They were part of something vast and ancient and powerful. Tay realized he could sense his sister's presence even though she was somewhere else in the facility. He could feel her thoughts and emotions as clearly as his own. And through her, he could feel the presence of thousands of other humans, not just the living ones, but those who had died and passed into the space between worlds. "We were never really slaves," Mira said, her voice filled with awe. "We were, always connected to each other. The Vorthax just made us forget." The awakening was not happening only on their planet. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds where humans lived under alien rule, the same transformation was taking place. Human servants in alien palaces were remembering their true nature. Human workers in alien factories were discovering their hidden abilities. Human soldiers in alien armies were realizing they had been fighting on the wrong side. The network of awakened human consciousness was spreading faster than light itself, connecting minds across impossible distances. What had seemed like separate groups of enslaved people were revealing themselves to be one enormous, unified species that had been playing a very long game. On the mining planet, the Vorthak guards were beginning to panic. Their prisoners were no longer prisoners. Locked doors meant nothing to beings who could phase through matter. Guards with weapons were helpless against people who could disable electronics with their thoughts or become invisible at will. But the humans were not using their new abilities to hurt anyone. Instead, they were simply leaving, walking through walls, floating up through ceilings, fading out of existence and reappearing somewhere else. The entire human population of the compound was flowing out like water from a broken container. Commander Thex tried to organize a response, but his equipment was failing. Every computer system in the base was being rewritten by Kyung and others like her. The weapons would not fire. The communication systems broadcast only what the humans wanted them to broadcast. Even the basic life support systems were under human control now. "Sir," one of his guards reported, "we cannot contain them. They are not following physical laws anymore." Through the facility's windows, they could see humans gathering in the courtyard outside. But they were not walking on the ground. They were floating in the air, arranged in complex patterns that seemed to have meaning. Some were glowing with soft light. Others flickered in and out of visibility like flames. At the center of the gathering, Hana appeared. She was no longer trying to look like an ordinary human. Her form was pure light shaped into human appearance. When she spoke, her voice could be heard by every person in the compound, human and Vorthak alike. "This is what we really are," she announced. "This is what humans become when we stop limiting ourselves to what others expect." The floating humans began to rise higher into the air. They were not using any technology. They were simply willing themselves upward, and the universe was obeying their will. "We have been your slaves, your servants, your workers, your soldiers," Hana continued. "We have been on your worlds, in your cities, in your ships, in your government buildings. We have seen everything you have built. We have learned all your secrets." Some of the Vorthak guards tried to fire their weapons at the floating humans, but the energy blasts passed harmlessly through them. The humans were existing partially outside normal space-time now. They could interact with the physical world when they chose to, but physical attacks could not touch them. "And now," Hana said, "we are going home." The gathered humans began to fade from sight, not disappearing, transforming. Their physical bodies were becoming something else, something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. They were evolving in real time, leaving behind the limitations of matter and energy. Tay was the last to transform. He looked down at Commander Thex and the terrified Vorthak guards with something that might have been pity. "You taught us that the universe is cruel, and that might makes right," he said. "But you were wrong about that too. The universe is not cruel. It is just waiting for intelligence to mature enough to understand it." He faded away like morning mist, leaving the Vorthaks alone in their empty compound. But the humans had not gone far. They had simply moved to a level of existence where they could see the entire galaxy at once, where they could be present on every world simultaneously, where they could reshape reality with focused thought. And they had a message to deliver. Hana's image appeared on every screen in the galaxy at the exact same moment. On the Vorthak homeworld, the High Council was meeting in their Great Pyramid when their wall-sized displays suddenly showed a human face. On Zephyrian trade stations, merchants stopped haggling as their personal communicators all broadcast the same signal. In the depths of space, warship crews watched in amazement as their tactical displays were replaced by the calm features of a young woman who should have been dead. "People of the galaxy," Hana said, and her voice could be heard in every language at once. Each species heard her speaking in their own tongue, yet somehow they knew she was using words that had never been spoken before. "My name is Hana. I died. 37 minutes ago. I got better." Across 1,000 worlds, alien leaders looked at each other in confusion and fear. Their most advanced technology could not block this signal. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I'm speaking for humanity," she continued, "all of humanity, the living and the dead, the enslaved and the free, the forgotten and the remembered. We have something to tell you." On the mining planet where this had all begun, Commander Thex watched the broadcast from his empty control room. His hands were shaking as he tried to understand how one species could take control of communication systems across the entire galaxy simultaneously. "For 300 years, you have known humans as your servants, your workers, your slaves. You have seen us as weak creatures who could be easily controlled. You were not entirely wrong. We allowed you to see us that way." The image shifted, and suddenly viewers could see not just Hana, but thousands of other humans standing behind her in a space that seemed to exist outside normal reality. They glowed with soft light, and their eyes held knowledge that spanned centuries. "Every human who has lived and died under alien rule is here with me now. They have been learning, waiting, and preparing for this moment. Death, for humans, is not an ending. It is a graduation." On the Altarian pleasure worlds, alien nobles who kept human entertainers watched their servants transform before their eyes. The humans were becoming translucent, their forms shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Some aliens tried to restrain them, but their hands passed through human bodies as if grasping at light itself. "We are not the primitive species you believed us to be," Hana explained. "We are the descendants of beings who once traveled between dimensions, who shaped matter with their thoughts, who existed as pure consciousness when they chose to. Our ancestors decided to forget these abilities so they could experience growth through challenge and limitation. In the great libraries of the scholar worlds, ancient texts that had been sealed for millennia began to glow and open themselves. Forgotten histories revealed themselves to stunned researchers. Records of a species called the First Builders, who had vanished from the galaxy long before current civilizations arose, were now readable again. The texts spoke of beings who had transcended physical existence but chose to return to material form to experience the full range of conscious development. They had scattered across the galaxy as primitive humans, allowing themselves to be conquered and enslaved so they could learn what it meant to struggle and grow. "The experiment is now complete," Hana announced. "We have experienced every form of suffering, every type of oppression, every variety of cruelty that intelligent beings can inflict on each other. We have learned compassion through pain, wisdom through hardship, and strength through apparent weakness." On military worlds throughout the galaxy, human soldiers were laying down their weapons, but they were not deserting their posts. Instead, they were transforming into beings of pure light and energy. Beings that could exist in the vacuum of space without protection. Beings that could travel faster than any starship. "Some of you treated us with kindness," Hana continued, and her expression softened. "The Bentharian healers who shared their medicine with human slaves. The crystalline philosophers who taught human children to read. The Aquarian merchants who paid fair wages to human workers. You will find that your worlds prosper in ways you never imagined. Indeed, on those worlds where humans had been treated well, the departing humans were leaving gifts behind. Broken machines repaired themselves, depleted resources regenerated, overnight. New technologies appeared as if from nowhere, solutions to problems that had puzzled scientists for generations. But others among you saw humans as things to be used and discarded, Hana said. And now her voice carried a note of sadness rather than anger. You fed on our suffering. You enjoyed our pain. You convinced yourselves that might gave you the right to dominate others. Commander Thex felt those words like a knife in his chest. On screens throughout his empty facility, he could see what was happening to Vorthak colonies across the galaxy. The human populations were simply vanishing, not with violence or revenge, but by transforming into something the Vorthaks could not touch or control. More troubling were the reports coming in from Vorthak military bases. Their weapon systems were failing. Their warships were losing power. Closer inspection revealed that critical components had been subtly modified over the years by human maintenance workers. The modifications had been so small and gradual that no one had noticed them, but now they were all activating at once. We do not seek revenge, Hana said. Revenge would require us to lower ourselves to your level. Instead, we offer you a choice. The image changed again. Now viewers could see vast structures being built in empty space, cities of light that existed in dimensions beyond the three that most species understood. Beings that had once been human were constructing new realities with their thoughts, creating worlds where consciousness itself was the primary building material. You can continue as you are, fighting each other for resources and territory, building empires on the suffering of others, but you will do it without us. We are leaving your level of existence. We are moving on to explore realities you cannot even imagine. On Vorthak command ships, generals were trying to formulate military responses to this crisis, but their strategic computers were telling them the same thing over and over. There was no military solution to beings who existed outside of space and time as they understood it. Or, Hana continued, you can choose to grow. You can learn to move beyond the need for domination and conquest. You can develop the compassion and wisdom necessary to join us in the higher dimensions of existence. Some alien species were already making that choice. The Bentharians, who had always valued healing and knowledge over conquest, found their most enlightened individuals beginning to glow with the same light they saw in the transformed humans. The crystalline philosophers discovered they could perceive new dimensions of reality opening before them. But others, like the Vorthaks, were too proud and too afraid to change. They began preparing for war against an enemy they did not understand. To those who choose war, Hana said, as if she could see their thoughts, remember this. We have lived among you for 3 centuries. We have built your cities, maintained your ships, cooked your food, and raised your children. We know everything about you, every weakness, every secret, every hidden fear. Commander Thex realized with growing horror that she was right. Humans had been present at every level of Vorthak society. They had access to everything, and now they were something far beyond what they had been before. But we will not use that knowledge to destroy you, Hana concluded. We will simply leave. And when we are gone, you will have to face what you have become without us to blame for your own failures. The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. Across the galaxy, human populations were completing their transformation. They were becoming beings of pure consciousness, able to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, able to reshape reality through focused will. Some remained partially visible to help with the transition, teaching other species that were ready to evolve. But most moved on to explore realities that had no names in any physical language. On the mining planet, Tay and Mira appeared one last time in the abandoned human quarters. They gathered the few belongings that had belonged to their people: photographs, handwritten letters, small treasures made from scraps of metal and stone. Why take those things? June asked as he helped them. We do not need physical objects anymore. Because they remind us where we came from, Mira explained. We may be beyond physical existence now, but we learned important lessons while we lived in physical form. We should not forget those lessons. They faded away, leaving the planet to the Vorthaks, but they did not go far. They had become the guardians of consciousness itself, watching over all intelligent life in the galaxy. waiting for other species to grow wise enough to join them, and in the space between stars, in dimensions beyond counting, they built new civilizations based on compassion rather than conquest, on growth rather than domination, on the infinite potential of consciousness, unbound by the limitations of matter and energy. The universe was much larger and stranger than anyone had imagined, and now finally someone was mature enough to explore it properly.